Super Mario Maker, like Little Big Planet, puts level creation tools in the hands of players. But what tools aren't given to you? Hello and welcome to the Cut Content Of, a show where we try to find content that you aren't able to see in some amazing games. This Wii U exclusive, for the first time ever, allows you to make your own Mario levels. But Nintendo made a lot of changes before giving people such power. Our first glimpse at Super Mario Maker was at E3 2014, so let's first take a look at what stuff was cut from the game between this and the final release. At this point, the game was only called Mario Maker. The logo and title screen also look much more like what you'd see in Mario Paint. For the Super Mario Bros. Style, everything looks different in this version, with gradients everywhere and much harsher shading. The textures look shinier and the coins even give out little sparkles when collected, like in the new Super Mario Bros. U style. No sign can be seen at the start of a level. The grid, while still the same size in the final version, is much more pronounced and even visible during play mode. In the background, the hills are much greener and the clouds blend in more with the colour of the sky. The trampoline is slightly smaller too. When you beat a level in this E3 version, a voice says, "Congratulations!" and the timer doesn't stop to count down. In fact, the timer carries on even during edit mode, but this was likely only for the demo, as when 60 seconds are left, a message would appear to tell you that you've only got a minute left of the demo. The timer also uses the word time for this demo, like in the original Super Mario Bros. But the final game uses a clock symbol. It starts at 999 in this version too, impossible in the final game. When beating a level, on-screen enemies will play a different animation while they disappear. The level editor changed dramatically between these two versions as well. To place items in question mark blocks, you'd originally use a specific block for each item that would disguise itself when playing the game. But in the final game, a normal question mark block can store whatever you like. All the icons are more pixelated, and the reset button isn't the reset rocket, but instead it's just the trash can. The eraser doesn't have eyes either. Core Spot is nowhere to be seen in this version. The hand is also pixel art, using its sprite from Mario Paint. The Undo Dog uses its Mario Paint version too. The stylus is grey when placing objects, but can only be black or white in the final game. At the bottom of the screen there aren't the letters S and G, but instead there's a sprite for the castle and no S. However, some scenes in the trailer do show an S, as this was likely a different build. The build without an S has a circle with a white arrow when picking the direction a platform will move, and has a closed eye instead of the button with Mario on it, down in the bottom left. The slider also has a blue colour to it, instead of being grey. The items at the top of the screen have more square slots, and some of them have different icons. Specifically the Koopa Troopers, Hammer Bros, and Piranha Plants. Also, ground is shown in blocks of 4. When you're placing objects, the voice that says what you're placing says it every time it moves on the grid. But the final version has it only do this when you actually place the object down. In this version, pipes could be placed over the top of the ground. The only accessible styles are New Super Mario Bros. U and Super Mario Bros. And you can swap between the two with this string. When you do switch styles, everything flips over horizontally, rather than diagonally. Mario doesn't have any transitions between his animations, making his movement a little weird. The trailer shows that when Mario picks up the weird mushroom, he goes skinny, but in the final version, he has entirely new sprites. Later that year, at the Game Awards, a trailer was shown that is very similar to the final game, showing new themes, game styles, and objects. Ground tiles, however, have an unfinished icon, and even though the HUD icons are no longer pixel art, there is still no reset rocket or core spot. The transition between styles is a bit weird in this trailer, as the sprites flip but don't switch styles until after the animation is finished. The starting arrow has a shadow in this trailer. It also looks different for some themes. E3 2015 had a new demo of the game and a new trailer showing the release date. Core Spot and the reset rocket are finally here. The eraser still has no eyes though. The front of Mario's face changed slightly between this demo and the final version as well, and these buttons are bigger in the final game. That's it for pre-release content that was cut, but let's look at what Nintendo left behind on the disc. Loads of early Splatoon clothing items, weapons and icons were left in the game's files, but we'll be saving those for a Splatoon episode. Big Steely, a large iron ball from Super Mario World, has a sprite in the files for the Super Mario Bros. Style, but doesn't get used at all. There's also a teardrop for the clown car that's never seen. Speaking of the clown car, when picking up a big mushroom placed with the 30th anniversary amiibo, the clown car gets a mustache. But in the files we can see a few unused sprites for a Mario-styled version of the clown car that goes unused. Also, there's a recolored Goomba for when using the underground theme, with a mustache but no Mario hat. This does show that Goombas were originally going to be a different colour when underground, like in the original NES game. There's even an unused version of Bowser Jr. for when the player has a big mushroom. The sprite for Luigi being launched from a cannon has an unused version as well. Stretch has a set of different sprites that go unused, with a completely different design. There are also other cut stretch sprites for the Super Mario Bros. 3 style and the Super Mario World style. A smaller sprite for Toad can be found with the Super Mario Bros. Sprites as well. The Super Mario Bros. 3 style of Mario has some unused sprites for ground pounding, which isn't possible in the game without hacking. He's also got sprites called wall_kick, possibly meaning wall jumping would have been possible in the older game styles at some point in development. In the Super Mario World styles files, there are testing sprites for Mario in red with white crosses on. The clown car has simpler shading and an unused version of the Hurt sprites. For the new Super Mario Bros. U style, there's a falling animation for Hammer Bros, but the actual game just spins them when they're defeated. All game styles have unused pink coins, which look like recolored versions of the normal coins, but the final game has a key on them instead. An early gameplay video accidentally showed a placeholder icon for a level before the actual icon showed up when scrolling back up. Some similar icons can be seen in the final game's files, saying sample instead of dummy, however. Nikki from Swapnote appears in a normal JPEG file unseen in the game, originating from Wii U development software. A debugging font was left in the files as well. The icons from the E3 2014 trailer and demo can be found in some test files. Also, the early goal poll is in with the Super Mario Bros. Game style files. 5 unused Mario costumes are referenced in the files, but without any actual sprites. There's Golden Retree, possibly a Nintendogs costume, Mario US, meaning Mario from the US version of Super Mario Bros. 2, Muncher, the black piranha plant first seen in Super Mario Bros. 3, Tetris, which is pretty self-explanatory, and the weirdest of all, Windows logo. Mario US still has its sound effects, which are the Arcade Bunny from Nintendo Badge Arcade has an early version of its appeal sound effect, which sounds like this. The final version is much lower pitch. Just over a year after Super Mario Maker released for Wii U, a port for the 3DS was released. It's only got a bit of interesting cut content. Mystery mushrooms were cut from this port, but there are some new references to cut costumes, including Golden Retree, the Nintendogs costume mentioned earlier, Rayman, probably Rayman from the game Rayman, Roy, either Roy from Fire Emblem or the Koopa Kid, and Ryu from Street Fighter. The locked door has some sprites that look completely different, and the lock stays on it when it's opened. We've recently launched some new merch, which you can check out at the link in the description or through the merch shelf below the video. We've got some really cool designs, like one with the TCCO background printed over the whole shirt. For sitting through this video, here's a code for 10% off anything in our store. If you like the video, share it with a friend who might be interested, or subscribe here. Thanks for watching!